What's up, welcome back. I'm John Stark, back from MovieGuy.com. If you're a blind film critic, today we're talking about The Boys, Season 5, Episode 2. Yep, they dropped 2 episodes. Thus, theretofore, I watched them both. So, spoilers abound because things. Uh, so in this episode, it's interesting because I recap episode by episode. So at the end, I did not bring up the fact that Ashley married Allfather because I didn't really think we'd ever see Allfather again. But we start right off at the top with this funeral for A Train, and Allfather, who's a flamboyant soup that is now married to Ashley, so he's the second gentleman. Um, he gives this big, you know, church speech, and a lot of the stuff that he says about Starlighters is so insane. But it's like the kind of stuff that people are saying in churches nowadays is insane. So I'm not terribly surprised. But yeah, it's the funeral for and the I guess the one thing is that there's a prolonged sequence with Homelander, who is sort of looking at the A Train casket and having this conversation like, it didn't need to go like this. You know, you were different than the others. You know, that kind of thing. He clearly has he has like zero appreciation for the Deep, who when they are in a meeting. So anyway, I'm trying to follow Homelander's. He goes off and he's in his feelings, so he decides to awaken Soldier Boy, his father, from cryo. Which they have an interesting conversation. They want to work together. Well, Homelander wants to work with Soldier Boy, even though Soldier Boy tried to kill him. But it's his father. So they have this conversation back and forth, and Homelander's like, I can fix your career. I am Vought now. People just do exactly what I tell them to do. So they think you're a commie. And he's like, I'm not a commie. So, you know, Homelander does get uh, Soldier Boy up. And then later on, they're in the White House, and you see that Sage is there with the Deep, and Ashley's there, and the president, and they're talking about these camps because Homelander wants to round up anybody who's ever said anything negative about him, which is terrifying if you think about it on a wide scale. He wants to go through people's social media profiles and anybody who's ever said anything negative about him, put them inside the camp. Which the president's like, I think that's a lot. I think it's funny too when he's like, you know, it's hard for me to sell that to the American people, but when I talk about raising taxes, that's going to be the. I'm like, I think when you start abducting millions of Americans and putting them into camps, um, you know, I'm sure right now they're at the tens of thousands, which is still a lot, but I'm sure Homelander has a lot of people who have made like a comment on social media, even people who aren't like Starlighters, but he's just been around for so long that, like, how far back are you going? Like, 10 years ago, you wrote LOL at something that Homelander did. Now you're going to the death camp. Um, there doesn't really seem to be like a bar, like a well, some transgressions. It's just like we're gonna use an algorithm to scan. Um, so, so yeah, Soldier Boy makes his appearance again, and Homelander gives the Deep like a death stare, basically. You know, like, you're incompetent, so I'm sending Soldier Boy to find um, Butcher and the rest of them. So, what's happening with the rest of them is now that they've broken out, they're trying to make this thing work, and we see that uh, they're basically the thing is done. I don't know what they needed Frenchie for because Samir finished it already. So I guess Butcher really did break people out because they were friends because he's been keeping Samir, who finished the formula, and it just needs to be tested. So they have to find. They obviously they can't test on Homelander right away, and they also need to know whether or not it, is it airborne? Would it kill human? All that kind of stuff. So they need to have like some sort of controlled test. So there's a superhero that no one's ever heard of called Rockhard, who I guess is like he's super strong. He has like granite skin or whatever, and he's like basically like Homelander. So he's the strongest suit that they think is not on anybody's radar. That if they were to kill him, that nobody would notice. So they track him down. He's surrounded by a couple of influencers, a couple of soup influencers. There's Countess Crow. There's Sheline, and I don't know, the other one just flies. Astroliner or something like that. Very low level superheroes that are out there doing VOT work. They're the local superheroes. I'm not even really sure what. I think Sheline's power is to cough hairballs onto people, and Astroliner flies so fast, I guess. I don't know. They weren't really impressive. And Countess Crow could speak to the crows. So they go into the facility, and the humans mainly basically have to be the ones doing this stuff, except Huey and Yumiko. Huey has the formula. They get attacked by Soldier Boy, who finds them super fast. By the way, I mean, like, his tracking skills really are that good. He's able to find Butcher and the crew super fast. Um, there was sort of a funny scene I skipped over where they're just sort of reacclimating themselves, and Starlight is going over their things, and you can see that she's feeling guilty because all these Starlighters are dying for her cause, and she's more than willing to die along with them. She's actually not very hesitant about that. It's really Frenchie and just doesn't want Yumiko to die, so there still is some like, well, and Starlight's like 10,000 lives for billions just doesn't feel like it's even remotely the same cost. But so she at one point they're giving him new clothes, and Starlight gives Milk a Britney Spears t-shirt as part of his new wardrobe of clothes that she was able to put together for them, and he just kind of gives her a look like, serious. So but the gang is back together, and then they get attacked by Soldier Boy, and they have to run. Meanwhile, they're trying to figure out also what to do with Rockhard, because they find him, and he is basically turned into a pile of rocks, because as they find out, he has a volcanic aspect to him. Like when they think he can hold his breath, like he slows his heart rate to like 10 beats per minute or something like that, is what Frenchie said. But then he ends up blowing his load, which is like lava. It's like a volcano, which is why he can't really move. He also speaks like he has like a voice box, like one of those computerized voices for people who have lost the ability to speak. That's how Rockhard speaks now. So there's that. So they fight Soldier Boy, and Butcher gets the idea of who better to try it on than Soldier Boy, since Soldier Boy is clearly flipped to Homelander's side. So they've set up this kill room for Rock Hard, which they're trying to get them into, and Soldier Boy ends up finding Astroglider and She-Line, and lets them know while he's facing off against Butcher, he has them go after Huey and Yumiko, and he says it in the most offensive way, the most soldier boy offensive way possible. Since there's like a fairy and a Jap running around, and go find them or I don't know. He threatens them with something. I can't remember what it was. I was like, man, Jesus. Um, so Astro Liner goes after Huey, which is super easy because she just flies, or he flies, or whatever. And She Line goes after Yumiko, which is a bit more of a fight. And Yumiko is clearly, because she ability is stronger than She Line. Still really unclear as to what She Line's actual powers are. But because all she really does is cough up a fur ball, and it doesn't really do anything to stop Yumiko. So, um, but yeah, Huey does get picked up. Anyway, they get everybody back to where they're holding. Well, they're not holding him; he can't move. Rock hard, and Milk has found and defeated Countess Crow because she only had like 2 crows left. She used to have more, but he captures the crows and throws them in the closet. So she basically is useless because she has no crows to command. And she's like, please, I don't want to die. I just want to go back home to my family. And she's like a teenage girl, and she just makes this stupid content online for VOT and like makeup tutorials and stuff. And she's taking like all these antidepressants and stuff that are on his stuff. So um, you do kind of wonder like what's going to happen with her. So I don't know what happened to She-Line. I think maybe she just died. I did lose track of She-Line. But Astroliner and Soldier Boy end up back in the room with Rockhard, and they end up getting trapped in there with the virus that ends up getting let out. So they find out that it does become airborne and it starts to kill them all. And Soldier Boy obviously has the strongest powers and starts like sort of bubbling over. But Rockhard starts turning into like black goo. Astroliner is not even strong enough to withstand anything, so he dies super fast. But Soldier Boy is the one that has the possibility of holding on the longest and staring at them. But eventually, then too, he drops. So they're like, well, it works. Our formula works. We've tested it, and it didn't transfer to. They had masks on and stuff, but I guess they still think that maybe it was safe for humans. So they go back outside, and then um, the soups, because Butcher had to stay outside because he's a soup now. So that was Frenchie, Milk, and Huey that had to handle it, and they leave, and you see Milk, and he nods to Countess, who he saved and let go. So she's like hiding behind a tree, and she mouths thank you, and so hopefully that was a good deed, and we don't see Countess, turning around and biting him for the. So then Homelander shows up, and he's all crying and upset, at the death of Soldier Boy. But he didn't die. The other two did. Soldier Boy. The final shot of the episode is Soldier Boy sits up in the ambulance. He's inside of a body bag and he sits up. So the people who are overpowered soups like Homelander and Soldier Boy, the virus will wipe out the lessers. A lot of soups like Astroglider will die easily, and I guess Rockhard, but maybe not Soldier Boy, maybe not Homelander. But they don't know that because they drove away thinking they killed Soldier Boy. So we'll see what happens, how this turns into another thing. Anyway, so a couple other things for some of the other side characters. Ashley gets involved a little bit, and we get to hear her powers, and it sounds like there's a voice inside of her head. So it's less that she reads minds, and more that she just has a voice inside of her head. And then so she ends up doing that thing from Harry Potter where there's like a face behind your head. That's her power now, is that she has like another face at the back of her head that is speaking to her. And so she has this conversation. That's what Compound V did to her. And so most of the time she has to wear like a wig over it. And so Sage mentions that she knows that Ashley can't read her mind, and they have a conversation about like why she's doing it. And Sage is basically just like, I love the fact that I'm powerful enough that everyone wants to kiss my ass, and like I love that. I love that level of control, because Ashley's like, you're smarter than Homelander. Like, you could change, you could be doing all this. Some of this stuff is stupid and doesn't make any sense. Um, and Sage is like, nah, I like it. She's like, I've got everybody from, this person to this person, kissing my ass and asking me, and I can have them do, you know. So that's why she likes it. The Deep Cell is shown selling some product at some point to somebody, but he doesn't do much this episode. I don't think Black Noir was in this episode at all. If he was, it was like for a hot second, like walking around in the background or something, but he does not contribute to the episode in any meaningful way. Aside from that, I'm trying to think if there are any other. I mean, we don't find Worm again, so yeah, that's basically it. Still no Ryan. I think that's it. So, yeah, that was The Boys season 5, episode 2, and still great audio description. There was one scene that I thought was weird, and it was because they had the time to do it. And I guess like we can infer that is quote the gang. But it's interesting because there was a scene where they're hopping out of a van, and the audio description just went with Huey and the gang. And there is a hot minute, like, before anyone says anything, and we're just kind of like sitting in silence. And I'm like, I feel like you could have said the names, but I don't know for sure. Did they try to say the names and then they shortened it to Huey and the gang? But it did kind of feel like that there was more time there. And I'm like, could I have said, Huey, Butchie, Frenchie, Yumiko, Starlight, Butcher, step out of the van in that period of time? Probably. Um, but I mean, Huey and the gang is just, you get it eventually, right? You get who the gang is. Anyway, into the weeds, but I do pay attention to the audio description anyway. That was just the one little thing I was like, huh, there's more time here. Why did we just say Huey and the gang? Huey in the news? Huey Lewis in the news? Maybe, perhaps? Is that a reference? No, it's not. So, that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. See you guys on the other side.